What's up, y'all? My name is Ebony, and I want to welcome you back to the Adult Puberty Podcast. All right, y'all. So, your girl has been grieving today. And no, nothing happened. Usually in the society that we live in and just, what we're accustomed to, we associate grief with, death, right? And as a matter of fact, the definition of grief is deep sorrow, especially that caused by someone's death. So naturally, that's kind of what we think of when we think about grief. But today, I realized that I haven't been allowing myself to grieve about some things. And some things I've been reluctant about just because I just didn't feel like it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just didn't feel like feeling the feels and going through the stuff about some stuff, But it's inevitable, that I'm going to have to deal with it. Right. And so that's kind of what I want to talk about today is, we usually attribute grief to, like I said, someone passing. Right. And I think in doing that, not that, of course, that applies, right? But I also just want to put out there, right, the notion that grief applies to any person, place, or thing that is no longer in my life or some change that has happened in my life. That's how I define grief, right? So obviously that definition is personal to each of us, right? But then there's the act of grieving, right? Like and I think that's the part that's like missing, right? Because typically we think, when something happens to us that we don't particularly enjoy or that doesn't feel good or just causes us some sadness or some sorrow, we, will feel how we feel, most times. And then we're kind of on this, like, let's keep it moving, got to learn and grow and move, and all true. But I think that there is that key component of actually allowing myself to like grieve for something, right? So like for me, what that means for me is allowing myself the space and the time to feel how I feel authentically about whatever. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. If I feel some type of way about it, that's causing me like, really sad feelings or just, some feeling of loss or something like that, I just let myself feel it. Right. And it doesn't matter how small or insignificant it may seem to somebody else, because it doesn't matter. Sometimes that's crying. And sometimes it's just simply sitting with the truth. For whatever reason, I associate grieving with sitting in something that doesn't feel good or isn't pleasant. Right or wrong, I guess. Yeah, that's what I do. So, not lately, it's been a while. Lately, I've just been talking about it. my life feels like a 3D movie without the 3D glasses. Like it's like this, like you see like something that you thought was a thing, but it's like really several components to it, and you just see things like completely different. Well, needless to say, a lot has been going on, right? So, on top of me, getting revelations and learning and growing and, not growing, you know what I mean? Having some areas for improvement, just all these like new things, right? But I haven't been allowing myself that time, right? Or space to grieve. And some of it is because of pride. Like my friend who was trying to provoke me to fight. Like, I'm still on some like, nah, like F her. You know what I'm saying? But in addition to that, it's also, that's a loss of a relationship with somebody that I loved and had a complicated relationship with, right? That is a thing, right? There's some like grief there. And it's okay, because at the same time, I'm like, yeah, ever. Like, I can't have somebody like that in my life. Like, I can't. I don't want to. So, and then there's like the grief of like a cousin, right? Who ended our cousinship. She was more like a sister, you know what I mean, than a cousin. But, it's, part of me was like, it's been nice not to have to deal with like her snappy like attitude and, just having to swallow that just to keep the peace. Like, I was tired of that. You feel me? But at the same time, she's also been a sister to me ever since I can remember, as a kid. So, that's not like a something to like take lightly, So, there's like some grief in that. So basically I'm saying that those are just two examples of like things that I realized today, like, there's like something there, right, that I haven't allowed myself to process, like for whatever reason. And I don't know why I was avoiding it. It just, I guess just the uncomfortableness of it, like how much energy that's going to take. Like, I don't know. So I've been allowing myself to do that. So I know you're probably like, okay, what's the point? Do you have some tips? Like, no. Yes and no. Right? Like, nobody can tell you how to grieve. Like, that is internal, right? To who we are. And that only comes from going to that place, where it's, only you with you and digging deep. I don't even really, to be honest, somebody had asked me before, like, what does that mean, digging deep? And what that means is like, there's that place, our soul, which is where our mind, our will, and emotions are, right? It's going to that place and not trying to rearrange anything and just observing what is. To me, that's the simple way to say it. Like, so like when you aren't controlling your emotions, what is it that you feel truly? And like controlling your emotions, meaning like something that you're not dealing with intentionally, something that you're stuffing somewhere because you feel like you don't really have time to deal with it. Like, that is what I mean in that instance of like controlling your emotions, right? Like, you put that stuff someplace and you keeps it moving. But like when you aren't doing that, and if you just let yourself feel what you felt about a particular thing, you know, the loss of a person, place, or thing, what comes up? And then I just kind of go from there until it's all done. But the thing is to not suppress it. And that's what I've been doing, is suppressing it because I didn't want to deal with it or feel what I need to feel as part of my grieving, right? Or something like this show called what is that show called? Shrinked. It's called Shrink. That show Shrinked on Apple TV. There was a suggestion. The guy said for 15, he has Parkinson's, and he's like, for 15 minutes a day, he allows himself to put on the saddest song and just be sad. And then when the timer's up, he's done and he moves on with the day. I actually like that. Like, I like putting a timer on it sometimes, right? But if it, like, he does that every day, not to say that, you know, but it just kind of gives you an idea, right? Just like something simple, like where you actually give yourself that time, right? Which is no different than what I was saying was like, I give myself, you know, the time and the space to feel what I feel. But I think that the part that I didn't have was like a time limit. Most of the time I'm not going to be with no time limit because I just like to feel my feels. But I think there's some power in that. And I think there's a time and a place for me in doing like some timed grief, I guess, if you will. So, I mean, those are two kind of like mini suggestions. But you'll know, you know, as you feel your feels, what it needs. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, and the reason why I'm just saying to allow yourself to grieve and to have grief over the loss of something or some change in your life. Because when you do, something releases. And, you know, I'm not saying it's a one-time thing, or it may be for you. I don't know. But all I know is that with it and allowing it to be grief in like your presence, I don't know. Sometimes it releases something. You know, and it depends on, you know, what it is, of course, right? Like, this isn't like a blanket prescription. There is no prescription for that. You know, like, I feel differently about, you know, grieving like the loss of like Christmases, how they used to be back in the day, you know, like where it was like all my family at my house and it was just a thing. You know, grieving the loss of that is different from me grieving the loss of, like, spiritually speaking, my old life, right? Those, one is like significantly heavier than the other one, but it still doesn't change the fact that those are two things, you know, that I needed to process. You know, getting older, like, just, I think grieving the changes, I don't know, you know what I mean, I guess, like, while embracing, right, getting older, but just, you know, seeing things change and like, oh, okay, I didn't realize that there was some grief, I guess. I don't know if it's my younger years, and I'm not a person who typically, I don't have issues with like aging. But then there's just a part of it that you can't help but to see. in yourself if you're like paying attention to yourself, right? It could be a new freckle, right? It could be gray hairs, it could be hairs that wasn't there before. Like, you know what I mean? All the millions of things that it could be. But there was some like grief to be had there, right? So that I can like move forward. So I'm just saying that, we live in this world that's like go, 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 go all the time. And it wants us to do that go, 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 go all the time. And a lot of times we doing it. We on the hamster wheel of day in and day out. But I know that's to our detriment, right? Because the consequence of that, the good thing about that is that it keeps us moving, right? So to speak, right? Not stuck. But the consequence of that is that it also allows us to push things away and not really deal with what's going on internally. And not processing our grief about whatever it is like our colon not digesting the food that we eat, but we keep eating and it's like not coming out. You know what I'm saying? Like eventually, like there's going to be a problem, like because you keep adding stuff to, right, your digestive system, but like nothing's having a chance to like get processed so that it can like go out. So, all right, friends, I'm going to leave with a quote. So it is from C.S. Lewis. No one ever told me that grief felt so like fear. Say live, friends. Pause and think about that.